What's up, you guys? It's ya baby, and we're here with episode 10 of the Think Tank podcast, and we have quite a hefty cast of characters today, and some nice little topics. It is being recorded a little bit late, so bear with us on this one. So we have the usual little wonder twins. We have the boy T.
What is Gucci?
And the young, formerly known as Phenom, Dom.
Hi.
Mr. I Can't 3-0 Ever. And we have our special guest starting off with the first one, Cameron.
I'm Cameron. I'm part of Silph Co. I'm alright at the game, not that great, but I'll pass it off to someone who's a little better than me. Gabe Smart.
Hi, my name is Gabe Smart. I'm a sponsor of the Silph Co. I did 2 Worlds. I didn't play as competitively last year, but I'm playing super competitively this year, and I'm at 308 points right now. So
Swag.
doing all right.
Daytude is a senior.
I was gonna say Daytude is a senior. You have to throw that one in.
Wow. Why
An
you gotta-
asterisk.
Why you gotta freaking rip this man's drip?
Damn.
Look.
What have you done, Don?
They didn't even know that shit.
The only thing I've ever won was a league challenge at San Jose freaking 2 years ago. Anyways, so today's topic's going to be pretty expanded cast today. We're going to have the results for Richmond, the top 8, and our thoughts on the format, how we think this will affect going into Portland, and any additional thoughts on expanded in general. And I think if we have some time, we'll touch on Paris towards the end. But going off of
What?
that,
You want to do Paris in the beginning?
bro, fine, Paris in the beginning. Jeez,
I'm asking.
since you have all the Paris info, go ahead, T.
I don't have all the Paris
Then
info.
how are
It's
we
in
going to
the
start with Paris first?
It's in the chat. Look, all we know is top 8 or 5 peak ROMs, a Pidgey control, baby Blowns, and then Nagquag. And, Guess what? Pika ROM 1.
Not a shocker,
So-
to be honest.
I just want to know why there's so many peak ROM.
Why are you shocked that there's
And
so
why
many
there was no
Pikachu?
Muni.
4th through 8th seed was Pika.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 through 8.
I'm more shocked at how did Baby Blowns get first seed going into day 2?
Because the
How did
deck
it make
has
finals?
some really good matchups, and it, like, Malamar is a horrible matchup for it, but it has some decent matchups. Like Rushy Greens is good, and I believe Guardian is
Tag
also a good
teams, pretty much.
matchup.
All the tag teams.
Yeah. Pretty much all the tag teams are pretty easy matchups for it, but it's Baby Brown, so we can have some.
It's time.
It's okay.
Malamar
Yeah.
sucks right now too. Like, I don't know. I think Malamar is just trash. I
is
think it's
very
about to get worse.
I agree.
And so, with Malamar not doing good, I could see like Baby Blondes and Nagquag. They're only 1 each, but like that's their bad matchup pretty much. I mean, they have here and there. They're not like the most consistent, but I don't know. You run hot. You run hot.
Is
Me
Malamar
and
actually
Ethan
that
were
bad?
gonna beat
Because
the
local
entire cat.
people still play
Mhm.
Malamar.
It just okay. Malamar is only good if you hit your Shadow Impact. It doesn't hit turn 2 Shadow Impact consistently enough for it to be like top tier. Also, Hoopa Lab is a major issue for the deck with Pikarom, and the deck just isn't consistent enough. And I think it's almost came to a point where the deck just isn't strong enough. Like, Cross Division can completely ruin Malamar's entire strategy of being able to set up, and the deck just isn't really powerful right now. Like, it's decent in best of 1s, but in best of 3s, it's hard to finish 3 games, so it just isn't.
So it's
Very
more
good.
of a, not that it's a bad deck, it's just it can't really like compete with the better
It
decks.
takes a long time to play. I will agree that.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to finish a game. Especially because you're trying to like 2 or 3 shot everything.
A lot of that's because people don't know when to scoop either, though.
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
a big part.
For sure.
I think the other thing is like when you think about it, like Malamar has a lot of consistency cards. Like, oh, they have Jirachis, they have mysterious treasures and Pokecoms. They can run all these consistency cards, but compared to pretty much everything else, like all the big decks, I mean, Quack, whatever, Baby stuff, not them, but the tag team decks, like they have to hit so many things. It's like, all right, I gotta set up 2 Inkays, I gotta set up 2 Malamars, I gotta get the Jirachi, I gotta get the Switch, I gotta get the Giratina, I gotta get 3 Energy, and it's like all this shit. And then, sorry for cussing, but you know, you have to get all this stuff, and then everything else. Like, oh, I just need a welder and some energy, peak ROMs. I just need a Hoopa, and I blow you out of the water. Yeah, and it's just likely that you whiff one of those things, and once you whiff one of those things, you're behind the rest of the game.
Yeah, alright. Because we get biased hate from Dom, so I can never tell if he's actually telling the truth or not.
Yeah, because Dom's just bad, so.
Okay, buddy.
But does anyone like have any thoughts on it? Like, did anything shock you from Paris?
Thoughts on top 8 in Paris? Not really. I mean, the Baby Blondes obviously making top 8 is kind of surprising because the deck, like, I had a top 16 finish, I think, in Knoxville, but like, it really hasn't like had a super strong finish aside from that. But I think it's that's probably the one. Yeah,
I would say Nagquag's kind of
Nagquag made top 8.
Yeah, that's also because Pikarom did well, right? And it supposedly has a good Pikarom match, but they don't play Power Plant or other counters. So, and I don't know. I don't like Welder decks right now. They just seem all in on Welder, and if you whiff, then you lose.
Welder decks haven't been popping up as much in top 8s recently.
So you think that's why Nagquag came up? Because Welder decks aren't?
I think it's just because like the meta's like starting to change, and like Nagquag's a very anti-meta deck. Like it has some pretty decent matchups. Like Mew3 is a decent matchup if you get double Keldeo out. Like it has a favorable Green Zard matchup, and like usually like 1 or 2 Nagquag like make top 32 or like make.
Yeah, I think the closest
from top 16
was maybe like bubbling out of top 8.
There was one that made top 16 at Atlantic City, and I don't think any made day 2 at Knoxville. I could be wrong though.
Didn't Alex top 16 with Nagquag?
I think one got like 9th or something. It didn't make top 8, but I think it like bubbled out. I could be wrong though, but I'm proud of my boy. I'm a little biased.
But like, so aside from like other Welder decks, Mew, how are we all feeling on Mew? Because that was showing to be like the dominant deck in the standard.
Mew is a Welder deck.
No, like this form.
Oh, it's
expanded?
No, standard.
We're not talking about expanded yet. We'll get there.
Okay. I think it's better than Reshi Zard, like both the Zards. I like Green Zard. The reason I think it's better though than the other ones is because you have Solgaleo. So even if you whiff, like you have a way to basically welder, right? You're doing 120 and a welder to the bench. And so you have options if you whiff the welder, where the other decks are all in and then they don't really have a backup plan. And obviously they have all these options, right? They have a million options for whatever matchup they're playing, and they have all these different attackers. So it's a little bit.
Why did none make top 8 is why I'm getting at.
I think that Pikarom has a actually pretty decent matchup against him, to be honest. I also don't know how many top players played.
Yeah, that's a big thing
compared to Pikarom. So I honestly don't know. But like, yeah, I don't know.
I think it was more of everyone expected Mew3, so they probably just like teched for it, and then it ended up not having a lot of people play it.
Yeah, and Pikarom can really help them out.
But I think before we move on, I think we talked about it before we started recording, that we were more shocked that Mr. Omnipoke won out of everything.
Good player.
Yeah.
Shout out to the
honestly, yeah. Testament to him, because there was a lot of really good players in day 2.
Is he the first like YouTuber first player to win?
No.
No, I don't.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, there's a bunch of YouTubers that have won.
I mean, Azul has a YouTube.
Yeah, but someone that was like a YouTuber first, and then, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, YouTuber first. That's
Maybe,
Tablemon.
I don't know.
Tablemon for sure, I think. Because like,
Yeah.
his like main thing is YouTube. Obviously, he
That
goes
is
to a bunch of events, but Tablemon definitely.
For the content creators, bro.
That's what's up. But I think we've any last standard things before we move on?
Nah, I'm over standard. I'm
Yeah.
over this meta. I'm down for Cosmic Eclipse. I'm already kind of looking at that, but this is kind of, I don't know. Peak
Ooh,
I'm
that's
just
one.
ready for a swell to wreck everything.
Get busted.
But moving on, let's go on to initial like immediate impacts from just Richmond as a whole. Like before we break down the initial
Aggro.
top 8, like let's just say like day one initial. I don't know if you guys followed it day by day. Like your initial response to, oh snap, this is XO or whatever.
Aggro.
The
I think-
beginning. Go on.
Yeah.
Kid. Go on, kid.
I think going into this event, a lot of people were hyping Archies and Turbo Dark and those type of decks. For the most part, Turbo Dark flopped, and there were 0 Archies in day 2, I think. People were hyping Stable Garb and Zora Control. Zora Control showed to clearly be the better one of the two. Because I don't think any Stable Guard made day 2. I think Aggro was also the most surprising deck to show up in such big numbers, because I believe 8 made day 2.
8 out of the
Yeah.
9, I think it was, made day 2, and then 3 of the 8 made top 8.
Yeah,
Correct.
And
that's crazy.
Aggro ended up winning, which I don't
don't
think anybody
see-
really saw seeing.
From the
Yeah.
reported decks, I don't see any Blastoise. There
No,
is
0
Zero.
made day
shockingly-
2 to my knowledge.
There
It's
is
a
shockingly
horrible
only
deck, right?
2 Trev breaks, which I did see people were leaning away from, like going in.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely a rogue pick for this event. Like, the deck is decent, like, but yeah.
I think that's what you had to do going into this event. Just guess with a deck, because like there's nothing really established with the
Yeah.
new Unbroken Bonds and Unified Minds being legal with expanded now.
Yeah, 'cause
Surprised at how many people played Zoro Handlock. It's a deck that has never. It's always been talked about, but people tend to stray away from it. It's a deck that Isaiah Williams has really brought to the front and center hold of like expanded, and even then, after he's done well with it, it was never a deck that people were like, oh yeah, I want to play Zoro Handlock, and a lot of players seem to kind of go towards it. I mean, they tended to be some of the better players, obviously, but still, it went from maybe a handful of people playing it ever to
Not
kind of
bad.
dominating, being like the main deck outside of aggro, which is
Yeah.
pretty surprising.
For sure.
And I'm just excited that Turbo Dark made final.
I think it's
My
kind of
God.
crazy because this essentially had 3 sets added from the last expanded regional.
2 or
I
3 or
believe it
something.
did. Yeah, 2 or
Yeah.
3.
At
I
least
think 2.
because it had
Broken Bonds and Unified Minds.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's pretty crazy how we had 2 whole sets, and I will admit there's a lot of shockers here for me personally, someone who doesn't play a lot of expanded. I honestly didn't think Night March had the power anymore, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, Night March has some actually pretty decent matchups. Like, if you play Archies and Swampert in the deck, your Zora Control matchup instantly becomes like relatively unfavored. But I think that Night March and Vespa Queen as well aren't gonna have that big of an impact on Portland, mainly because Vile Plume is gonna be such an issue, and that also
Aggro
that
is
it's on-
scary.
Yep, and that Toad Karen and just like, and the fact that like Night March is on people's radar now, that makes the deck significantly weaker.
So you think people
That
are just
everyone knows
surprise
about it.
picks?
Yeah, but like Night March was being hyped, but I don't think some people took it as seriously as they should have. And like since it did relatively decent, I think maybe one made top 16, but there were multiple that made day 2. But like now it's on everyone's radar, and Night March is a deck that is good in a meta where it is not expected. Now it is very expected.
Yeah, it always comes and goes as like a one of.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
takes a horrible matchup to aggro because they're playing Karen and then item lock, so it's pretty much over if you play aggro, and that seemed to be the most dominant deck of top 8. And so, I mean, you have some pretty. I mean, you're pretty confident and ballsy if you play either Night March or Vespa Queen 2 or Rahul.
Was
to
aggro
the
like
next-
you know how there's always that deck that's like the top of the tournament? Was aggro that deck?
Definitely.
Pretty much.
Yes.
100%.
That and Zora Control were definitely the talk of the tournament.
So it looks like Shocker's Aura Control was the whatever's left of DDG's deck.
Yeah.
It's slightly
Oh,
different
oh,
than Toad because they always played Toad and it was more about item lock. This is more Isaiah's version, whereas hand lock, and
Yeah.
it's
For someone who's not as
I mean,
experienced with the hand lock per se, you want to explain that a little bit more?
with the inclusions of Surge and Stamp, it made the deck way more consistent. You're basically never trying to take prizes. You're trying to put your opponent's hand to 0, put something that is dead into the active, like Shaman or whatever, just something that doesn't have any energy. And then you just control their top deck and mill for the rest of the game. So
Yep.
you could Stamp, Surge, Mars, and things like that, and then Countercatcher, and then eventually just start stripping off their energy with Plumeria, Articuno, Melmetal, whatever energy denial that you have while controlling their hand. And once they have the lock, it's near impossible to kind of break out of it if they're a good player.
Yeah. Like it's very similar to how Sableguard runs. It's basically just to lock them out of being able to play the game. And it definitely showed that. But the DDG's lists were actually significantly different than some of the other Zoro Control lists, because I know there were 2 Zoro Control lists that made day 2 that were drastically different than DDG's list, because they played Electro GX and Honchkrow GX, and those were also used to basically hand your opponent prizes and then reset stamp them and then go like Surge, Mars, and then use Unfair to basically lock them out of the play in the game. So that's definitely something that I think was something that really showed itself at this event. And one
Yeah.
of those decks did make top 8.
Gabe worked a lot with Rowan. And Electro GX is basically for the mirror, and I think anyone who's thinking about playing Zoro Control for Portland has to play Electrode. So Electrode, you just pop it, and you force the opponent to take prizes, and then you can go, and you can pair that with Surge. Now you have access to Surge in the mirror,
Yep.
which is extremely strong. You have Counter Catcher, which is strong. Honchkrow. So if you pair all, it's kind of hard to pair all those things together, but in Zoro Control you have the time in mirror, and you just pop the Electrode, make them go down to 4. You reset stamp them to 4, and you go Surge, Mars, and then Honchkrow the other 2 cards out of their hand.
Yeah.
And then they have no hand. And
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
I
you
think
can do
that-
other things as well.
And you
Oh,
can
yeah.
chip to control their top.
Yep.
deck.
And you also want a power plant as well. But but like Cameron said, me and Rowan actually built and worked on the list for a solid week and a half. And I do think that his version is by far the best version out of the top 8 Zoro controls, just because it beats the mirror, which is I think the biggest thing for him and for that version.
Oh, there was
Okay.
different versions. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. The majority of Zoro controls at Mayday 2 did not play Honchkrow and Electrode, where Rowan's list and Isaiah Bradner's list played Electrode.
Okay. Now, going into day 1, did any of your guys' picks do well, or were you just completely wrong?
Zoro.
I think our top pick for the team was Zork Control with Electrode and Honchkrow, and Preston Ellis from our team played it, and I believe he lost his last 2 rounds. I think he was like 5-1 or something
he lost
like
his
that.
last 2 rounds. Yeah, he lost the last.
Yeah, I mean, he was in contention. He just needed one of his last 2. I think his list was pretty similar to Isaiah Bradner's.
Yes.
If I'm not,
It was similar to
yeah, and
Isaiah
then
Bradner's.
and Isaiah Bradner got 17th, and then Rowan's, who got 6th, was working with Gabe here, and so that was our top pick. But we also knew it would take like, I mean, all these players that we're naming are really good players. So we knew it would take, you know, like some of the top players to be able to handle the situations that,
Yeah.
you know, like all these decks were throwing at
if
it.
you
So
guys went, that's what you would have played, or no?
yeah,
I would have played
definitely.
the same 60 as Rowan.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
guys
I would have played
pretty
something
much
similar.
had a good guess on the format.
Wait, can I pause for 2 seconds to ask this question? Did
Hmm?
anybody else see on stream Jimmy throw that game to the?
I heard about it. What
Nightmare
happened
player?
exactly?
Okay,
Got resets
so
and decked himself.
no, he he got the kid in the handlock. He
Hmm.
giraffe rigged away a Night Marcher and a Juniper.
Hmm.
And his chip, he left the kid a Verse Seeker, and the kid had in left in his discard pile. So when he in Jimmy with the Verse Seeker, Jimmy only had 6 cards and 6 prizes.
Oh.
So he just went N and then Jimmy and
Yeah.
lost.
I mean, I think that's like, I mean, we hold DDG to a certain standard because they were so dominant last year, and I think that just kind of shows how many things are going on with that deck.
Yeah.
You can just make
down already, and then he just missed
Deck is
those
so-
you make one mistake.
Yeah.
Like you make one mistake, and you might not even realize it at the point. Like that's a very clear, obvious mistake. But the deck is so hard that you just make one small mistake, and you can lose any matchup.
Yeah.
You can beat anything, but you can also just lose by making a small misplay like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty
It is
crazy.
by far the hardest deck to play next time.
Oh God, yeah.
Probably the
You
most
need
mentally
like so
draining
much
too.
testing
You do.
to like do good with the deck.
Like, I'm relatively confident with the deck. I'm for Portland, but I don't know if I'm going to play it solely because it takes you just have what you're doing. And, like, there are plays that you don't think are misplays, but they're actually the wrong play.
Yeah.
The reason why I
So-
wouldn't play that deck is because it feels like that's one of the decks where like you're basically set up for success. So when you lose, you can't really blame like, oh, I drew bad or this. It's more of like, oh no, I should have chip shipped this or you know.
Yeah,
So
the
you
mistake
can't
is
really
usually
put
on
the
you.
blame
Yeah.
on anyone but yourself.
Yeah, knowing what to do each turn is really critical.
I mean, I was testing, so I would be playing with Caden Hyatt, who's also on the team, and he would be playing the deck, and I would just be watching, helping him play the deck, and he would play against somebody else. And I just remember this one time we were testing, and he does this play, and I don't remember exactly what the play was, and I was like, "Hey, why did you do that play?" And he's like, "Yeah, because I'm you know, this is what I'm trying to do." And I was like, "This play is better," and I explained it out to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, that does seem better." And then the next turn, I was like, "We should do this," and he's like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You should do this." And I was like, "Why would you do that?" He's like, this, and this. This is better. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this deck is so hard. Like, I'm sitting there with another person, and like we're going back and forth, and he was right, and I was right, and it's like, it almost feels like you need so much experience with the deck to get it right.
You
Yeah.
know every single matchup, every single possibility. That's definitely a deck you definitely bring a little notepad and you're like, yep. You write down everything.
Agreed.
Yeah. The deck
Okay.
is only as good as the player is.
Yeah,
So,
that's why
like,
you'll never
you
see
have to
me
know what you're
play.
doing.
So, what do we
Okay.
think encounters
So-
all this stuff, guys?
Wait, pause. Since you guys have mentioned the team a lot, how about we just name off who all is on Silph Co real quick?
So it's myself, it's Gabriel Smart here, it's Preston Ellis, Tanner Hurley, and Caden Hyde. Everyone's in Masters except for Caden. Tanner just recently joined, but he's a really good player from Florida. Everyone else is here from the Bay, and that's our team.
Is Silph Co like a website, a shop, or
We were gonna do content and just looking at the lay of the land, and not gonna name anybody, but I mean not this kind of content, but paid article site content. Just not all the. First of all, there's so many of them, and then people aren't always honest. I mean, I'm not gonna say everybody. There is definitely people on content who are honest, but not everybody is. So we just thought we probably won't go that way, and we're gonna try some other things.
So it's more just
we
like a
go about.
collaboration. It's not like how DDG is like a store or whatever.
No, I think what we're gonna try to do is we're focusing on merchandise. Like we're gonna make streetwear and clothes. The first shirt is obviously a team shirt, and we're gonna do more things that are slightly Pokemon related, but not blasted. So it's like references where you would get it if you actually know the game, but
Yeah,
maybe
like a Hundred
not.
Thieves route.
Stuff like that. Yeah, like more streetwear, like Pokemon slightly influenced and stuff like that. So
Dope.
we're gonna try to do stuff like that.
That sounds dope.
More power. I want to see Kelly in the map. I don't care how we get there. I'm tired of the disrespect that West Coast gets.
True. I'm with you on that.
I'll never forget what Charizard said about how every regional on the West Coast is free.
That's so wrong because there are
He
Soon
said the
come
only people to worry about were, at the time, it was Sosa, and I forgot the dude, but I don't know his name, but he's from the South.
Marcus
too.
here.
Who?
Kenny Britton.
Yeah.
All I know
Mark
is
Garcia.
that's all I know is people came through to Santa Clara and Keon Amini gave everyone the hands, bro.
Yep.
They only named basically like 5 or 6 people, and they said if you play
Yeah.
them, good, but other than that, it's free. Shots fired, take it or leave it.
I think that's just because we don't go to a lot of events, and
Yeah,
it's because it's so
that's
expensive.
true.
But whatever, neither here nor there. I don't want to get in a little
Right.
pissing match with
Hey,
whatever.
We'll get the. Hey, I'll throw shots anywhere. I don't care. I honestly don't care. But yeah, I just want we get some respect. I think we're getting there, but not where I want to be.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's dope. So
Yeah.
going into day 2, pretty much everyone was like, "Oh, eggs this, eggs that," and did it pretty much play out how you guys thought, or did anything new come up?
I didn't think there would be 3 in top 8 because the deck does not beat Troll if Control is built to be like. Egro was playing Quad Faba, which made it so that the Zora Control lists that were only playing 40 CE just straight up can't lose to them. And then that kind of became a major issue for some of the Zora Control lists to where the ones that played Water. Energy, I think your matchup is relatively free against Egro, but I don't think a lot of people were expecting Egro to do like this good. Like people were expecting maybe a couple to make day 2, but the fact that it did so much better than Mewtwo Vileplume, which is kind of like a similar deck. There are some differences, but like the goal is to item lock them. I think it was pretty surprised the deck did so well.
Okay.
So
And we had a split of 3 egg in top 8, 3 Zora Control with some differences, and a Turbo Dark, which T's probably happy about, and Guardian. I think
Yeah,
Turbo
Guardian
Dark's
was-
pretty surprising to make top 8, no?
yeah, the Turbo Dark played a 1/1 Weavile plus Marengu, and that's mainly for the control matchup because how control wins is basically locking them out of drawing anything good. So if they lock them with Plant, then they can just with Struck draw 3. If they Silent Lab lock Turbo Dark, they can just move energies around with Weavile. So it kind of just creates a situation to where like Zora Control can't really stop you. So I think that was a
So
big
they
reason
played
why.
the Instruct Monkey, not the
Yes.
other one? Okay.
Yes, they played the Destruct.
Yeah, and I
mainly
think
for the Zora Control matchup.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
one
I think
thought you were
Weavile.
talking about the other one.
no, and even the Weavile, I think that's something that might become bigger in Turbo Dark. Or will most likely become bigger and maybe a thicker line because we were talking about Zora Control. The way they win is they bring up something that's dead and then they just strip all the energy from it. With Weavile GX, you can just move the energy to it. Turbo Dark has just a million attackers in it that are relatively decent. Most of them are like pretty good, so they just put all the energy on that. Not all of them, but however much energy they need, and then they just start attacking with it, and it gives you like more options. And you can even run things like Sabletar and Darkion if you want, which are pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
I think it has so much variety going for it. Like you have all these big bodies where you just throw up for like the aggro decks, they're just trying to like run you over. And then you have I think like you said, Weavile is just such a lifesaver. because
Yeah,
you can just
like-
move it up, retreat, and then you could use.
Yeah,
They don't use the newer Dark Stadium, right? They probably just use Darkrai.
they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, and
They
yeah.
just use Darkrai.
Okay, yeah. So
It's
get
just
free
really
retreat,
nice to see
move
the
it
deck
everywhere.
evolve.
So I expect to see more of
Like-
that.
For
I
sure.
mean, maybe
Like,
maybe
I don't
even
think
thicker on the
Turbo Dark-
Weavile.
Yeah. Like, I don't think Turbo Dark in itself is very good. I think the deck is good if it has some type of variety. And I think that's where Weavile gives it, because just straight Turbo Dark is way too linear in my opinion, and I don't think it beats Control. But I think a list that has some more like spicy text, like
Some more like the
like the
Dark
Weavile.
Box.
sure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost to one. If you play Darkion, you kind of just beat Zoroark Control. I remember that he just Dark Moon GX or whatever that GX is, and then I had all the cards to lock him in hand, but I couldn't play it.
Yeah, Dark.
I couldn't play any of my
No
cards because he
training.
GX'd me. Yeah, instant KO, no trainers. Like, he did that to my Zoroark, and I have all the cards. It's just like, oh, I can't lock you. And then he's like, Kuzma, knock out your Lele. I win. Like, okay, cool.
Yo, that's disgusting. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, that also beats all, like, and they can do that against all the tag team decks. Like, they can go, like, against Pikarom. I mean, it takes a while it's like, kind of quick, but maybe not as quick as some of the other things. But you can go Darkion GX, knock out a tag team. So you get 3 prizes. They can't do anything for the next turn. And then you just go into T-Tar, and then you smash the Shaman, and you take an extra prize. So you basically just won.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like I actually think that a more heavier Weavile line, like maybe playing like 2 or 3/3 Weavile, along with Mega Sableye and Tyranitar, and also the Darkrai Umbreon, I think has a lot of potential in this format, because the deck does beat Control, and I feel like it has much more variety to the deck compared to just straight Turbo Dark. So that is something that I actually am going to be testing for Portland. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but it's something that I definitely have. I do think is actually very good.
Okay. And as for Guardian, Guardian making top 8 is actually surprising. Not
definitely.
on anyone else's radar.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that was not on my radar at all. I mean, I knew it was kind of a deck, but maybe not top 4.
Yeah.
But and it was the only one too, so I'm not sure how many people were playing it. Obviously, this
I don't
person
think
probably
many
knew what
did.
they're doing. They like knew the deck pretty well, so maybe you'll see more of it. But I'm just not sure how many people will actually go with that for
Yeah,
what is
Portland.
the
So I'm not
limit?
sure how worried you should be about it. Like maybe a handful of people will play it, but I'm not sure it's like a deck that will blow up and something you should really worry about for Portland.
Yeah. Aromatisse, it's the one that does the same thing as Weavile GX, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Except
yes.
for Fairy Energy.
Yeah, that's wild. So basically 2 turbo decks, and then all of these crazy item locker control decks in top 8.
Fun
So-
expanded.
How do we think? Yeah, how do we think this affects the meta going into Portland next week?
I think
I-
all eyes will be on aggro. Like right now, I just think a lot of things will be on
Yeah.
aggro.
Yeah, I think that Zoro Control will be once again big. I think a lot of the top players will consider it. I think that aggro will not do as well because the deck is known and people can. It's just like aggro is, I feel like, good in a more like unknown meta, and I feel like Zoro Garb has actually a decent matchup against it. And I feel like Zoro Control just beats it if it's built to beat it. So I think that the fact that it's more known is gonna mean it has less of an influence.
What
But I
text
do
do you
think-
think changed the matchup in, or what
Oh,
text
so-
should people be doing for aggro going
Yeah.
into?
So I think
Cam
a
can talk
big
about this.
thing that people weren't ready for. I mean, maybe some people were ready for it. It's that Burning Shadows Vileplume that makes it so basics can't attack, and they also have Faba, so Stealthy Hood doesn't work against them. But if people start teching Evolution Pokemon, so I know there was a. We were talking today about Pikarom, and I think there was a Pikarom that top 32'd with the Jolteon GX.
Mhm.
I think So I think that becomes more prevalent. You can even play Electros, the new one that is kind of like Tapu Koko, and it's a stage 2. Maybe that's not as good as Jolteon GX, but those are things that you can play to kind of get through the Vileplume. And I'm sure there's plenty of other decks that that could play stage 1s, but don't just didn't for this regional. And I think that just becomes more prevalent. Even I don't know how many decks could play it. There's the Flareon that makes all your stage 1s fire. That's a good way to counter this grass deck, if you can get it out. So I think there's counters for it. I think it was like a deck that was kind of talked about, but almost seen as a meme beforehand, before the event. So maybe not everyone took it seriously. And after these results and how prevalent it was at the top table, it's like it has a huge target on its back. And in expanded, everything has a counter.
Yep.
So I definitely heard about it, but like you said, I was like, they can't be serious with this. Like,
we talked about the Mew Mew version. I want to say it was like last week, because the Mew Mew version was getting like blasted everywhere on like social media or on YouTube. But like just seeing the straight version and just how consistent it is, being able to plop down Vileplume turn 1, bringing you back to those Forest the Giant Plant days was just disgusting.
So I didn't watch much of it. So for someone like me who's just kind of like not really paying attention, do they just lock you and just slowly kill you, or what's their goal?
Yeah, they go hit you.
Aggro?
So they could just go. They go the item lock plume, and they don't play a lot of items at all. They have a lot of supporters and Pokemon and things like that. So they item lock you, and item lock is always strong against a lot of these turbo decks. And then
I just didn't know if it was a stall or do they just actually take the prize cards?
No,
then they also have
cards because
they also have Sceptile GX. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to explain it?
And they just knock off your energy because Sceptile's attack knocks off energy. They have Fabas. They can attack. They just slowly. It's not like a quick attacker, but they just slowly whittle you down and then lock you out. And that's
But they do take the prize cards, is basically. Okay.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, and they also, against basics, like Cam said, they played the Burning Shadows Marshadow, and they just slowly hit you with the
Burning Shadows.
Yeah, that's what I meant. They just slowly hit you with the Vileplume to basically make your opponent scoop and go to game 2.
Yeah, they also have the Shuckle GX, which really messes up any deck who doesn't put a lot of energy on it. So a lot of like Buzz Garb and things like that kind of mess it up. And then, so they just have like a lot of these different answers and lock cards. And then they have Virizion GX, which GX attack is basically, it removes as many cards from play. So it could just like, if you don't have a stage 1, they just remove everything that's not the Vileplume Burning Shadows. So you can't, like you just can't attack now. Like you have no Guzma targets. If you can't get through it, you can't get through it. And whatever it is, like they just lock you, and then if you're not ready for it, then
Kind of
good
funny.
luck.
I thought there'd be like a buyout by now, but they're still like $2.
Yeah, they're all cheap. So that I think a lot of like mid-tier players, it will play it. It's a cheap deck. It's if you can get the cards before in time, like shipping or whatever, then I think it'll be prevalent enough. And we were playing against it today after the cup. It's a strong deck for sure. It just depends on how many people will counter it.
Now, we talked about the counters for Rowlet. Do you think there's anything Rowlet can add that to maybe answer guessing like the counters, or does it not really change much?
I think that they can add Girafarig, because a big thing that Zoro Control does is like, yes, you have the 4 Fabas, but if they play basic energies, you can't really get those out of play. So I think that Girafarig, because you can Plumeria water energy and then Girafarig the water energy, and normally they play like 1 or 2. So if you're able to get those gone, Zoro Control I don't think can really win, because they can't like they can't start to loop you and stuff. And you don't. So I think that could potentially be put in the deck, but I don't really know how good that is, and I haven't tested it to see if Draft Break like makes it an auto win for aggro. But
You could also play. You could also play Bunnelby. The one we were
Yeah.
playing against today, like they were playing a Bunnelby, and what they can do if they have item lock is they can just Guzma up something that's dead, and if you're not able to move it,
The dual trait one?
yeah, the one that mills
Yes.
2 from the top of the deck, so they could just Guzma something up, or if you're low or whatever, and then they just start milling your cards, and then you start losing your answers and stuff. And they did it one time against Zorogarb, where they were just removing their sky fields, their energy, their special charges, and things like that. And like those are your answers to power plant and stuff.
So there are some stuff
so you-
they can add going into.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, some small things they could add.
Now I think you guys briefly touched on it. Like you guys said, you would have played Zoro Control going into this one. Does that change going into what is the next one? Portland?
Yeah.
Does that change anything, or are you guys still thinking Zoro Control?
Yes, it drastically changes what I think. I think Zoro Control is not my second pick. I think potentially Zoro Garb is probably my first pick right now, and I do think Zoro Garb is better positioned for this meta because the techs are known to beat Zoro Control, and Zoro Control is gonna probably be played by a lot of people, regardless if they know how to play the deck or not, just because of DDG played it and they have such a vast influence on the meta. So I think it does actually change my view, but I still may play Zoro.
And are you guys
So-
both going to Portland or no?
I'm not going. I'm just testing with like everyone else on the team is going, so I've been helping them test, but I'm not.
I'm going.
Does that change anything for you, Cameron? Are you still, if you were going, would you play Control?
I would. So, I'm worried that there are a lot of small things that decks could add that can mess the deck up. So I think things like Octillery, Archie Swampert was something that was a little bit played, but that cards like that, which aren't shut off by Silent Lab or Power Plant, become a lot stronger. Octillery, Zebstrika, Swampert. So if people start teching that more, which, I mean, if you see how many Zora controls were played and you expect it, like that's a card that you could easily tech into Buzzgarb, which usually has a bad matchup against control, but if you don't get hand locked as easily, I mean, you have typing against them, you have Garbodor, you have all these things against them. So I'm a little bit worried about Zora control. I think it's going to take, like, just once again, it's going to be the top players, like the players who really, really know how to play the matchups perfectly and how to get around these kind of techs. Are the only ones who are going to do well. I think Zorogarb is actually very well placed. It didn't do great, but
One loss is winning them.
yeah, Michael Catrone,
Yeah.
is winning him. But I think,
Top 8.
yeah, I think that deck is just a lot more well placed. We were playing it today. We were playing the matchup of Agro versus Zorogarb. Alex McNeil was playing the Zorogarb side, and he was saying that it's favored for Zorogarb, and we were like, no, there's no way. There's Power Plants and Fabas, and he played it, and he went 7-2 against it. And it was a pretty simple strategy. He just, like, two-shot pretty much everything. The deck doesn't have a lot of healing. And then, so, I mean, they can't always hit Faba, and so they're just going to knock it off with Sceptile. And then what you do is you just go double. If you have double Clef Key, you can just Clef Key onto the Garbodor when you need the special charge, bring it back, and then start trading again. And then just kind of two-shot everything. And then the deck loses steam. It's not a fast deck, so if you kind of take out some key knockouts, the deck loses steam pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What about you, Don?
And I think
Sorry. were you-
My picks for Portland or like
Yeah. Where would you play, Mr. No Leaks?
I like Zero Control, but I also like Buzzgarb. Because I find Buzzgarb to beat Zora Control because the list that I'm playing plays Octillery and Oranguru, so you can always Octillery against Zora Control, but your opponent can still Hiker, which controls 5 cards, which Octillery draws until you have 5 cards in your hand. So, but it's still very nice to have that, and Buzzgarb also obviously has type advantages over dark Pokemon, and as we know in the meta right now, there's a lot of dark Pokemon. So,
And since you're like the only senior currently, how different, like, do you know what did good for seniors at Richmond? Was it Richmond?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think there was like 2 or 3 Zoragarbs, and then I don't know anything else. Gabe, do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I believe there was 1 or 2 Turbo Darks, there was 1 Zoro Control, and I think 2 to 3 Zoro Garbs. I don't know what won, but I know one of the Zoro Garbs lost in top 4.
Because I think Dom told us
Yeah.
once before that seniors don't usually like the control decks, right?
Yeah.
The best players do, and the best,
Like the
very
Yeah.
top players.
percent, basically, like the dudes who are like ready to age up or whatever. But for the
Yeah.
most part, I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
But for the most part, I feel like we don't play much control. Like, we prefer to go, like, attacking routes or more aggressive routes, you know?
But even with that in mind, we still think that control, or what was the other one, Garb, is a good pick going into Portland.
I don't like control. I just personally don't like the deck. My picks going into Portland are Zorogarb, Buzzgarb, and Aggro.
Okay.
So Nabil Hyatt is someone in our area, his 2 seniors, and we were making a chart because he was like, oh my god, we had to figure out what to play for my kids now that Agro came in, and so we made a chart, and it was the triangle of the meta, right? So everyone, the winning deck was Agro, and everyone's eyes are on Agro, and so that's one end of the triangle, and we say what beats Agro, and we came up with all these turbo decks and Zoro Control. So it was like Zoro Garb. After we had seen it win 7-2, it was Turbo Dark, but with the Weavile. And if you go like a thicker Weavile, I mean, and I know it won in finals, but I think if you go like a thicker Weavile, make some changes, it could win Pikarom. It's so turbo if you have some outs for the Burning Shadows Vileplume. And then, so we think those decks beat it. And then the other end of the triangle, it's like the counter to the counter, right? So if you expect a lot of people to counter Aggro, we think you play like Night March or Buzzgarb, and Buzzgarb just has a really good matchup against those like Pikarom, Dark Box, Zoro Control, Zoro Garb. The problem is, like, if you make the wrong call there, like those decks just lose to Aggro, right? Like the Baby Buzzgarb is Night March. Things like that. So I think that's kind of the triangle right now, and you really have to make a guess now on like what you think people are going to do. Are people going to play aggro? Are people going to play the counter to aggro? And if you think people are going to play the counter, is it smart to do the counter to the counter, right? Like, and play Buzzgarb. The thing is, though, like if you make a mistake and you make a wrong call, but with Buzzgarb, like you could be 3-0 and play against a bunch of like Zero Control, but you could also be 0-3 because you just played against like 2 aggros, right, and just get bodied. So I think it's kind of just like now you have to make an educated guess on what other people are going to play now.
So we went from a complete blind guess to an educated guess.
Sure.
That's cool.
That's the game we play.
Yeah.
Paper, scissors, rock, baby.
No, nothing changes, right? Because we still won't get the bans till after this, right?
Nothing changes, but the meta changes for sure.
Okay. And this one was on the East Coast, so we probably should get a smaller one. Not to talk crap, but aren't the like Portland?
I mean,
not as big, right?
It was already kind of small too. It was barely over
Richmond had, like,
400
400.
people.
Yeah,
Barely
it was
over
like
400.
420, right? Yeah, it was like 420. There's a chance that Portland hits 350, 400. So like, I don't think it's gonna be that different because Richmond is so far East Coast that I feel like a lot of like like people who might live like in Colorado or like who like aren't like fully halfway there towards Richmond aren't gonna go to Richmond and they're just gonna go to Portland.
I think Portland's also like an easier place to fly to. I could be wrong, but
Flights are expensive from
Portland's
my
very
knowledge.
expensive to
really.
Because
Wait, yeah.
I was lucky to find a flight today, but we were gonna drive. But because flights, since I'm a young boy, I had to fly with a parent, so it was gonna be like $1,000 to fly.
What the?
Yeah, but we found a flight now that is only $260 per person round trip, which isn't bad at all.
And that's
I
nice.
like
Considering,
it.
like,
Young boy.
It was like 500 per.
It might be because
What?
it's late, like it's a week to go, right?
Because
And I think you also have to take into account like that was on the East Coast where they have a lot more regionals, right? It's like 8. They have 8, and we have 4, and so people here like it's so expensive for people on the West Coast to go over to the East Coast. It's just like $500-$600 just for the flight most of the time, and. This is where, like, if you're on the West Coast and you want to get your invite, you probably have to go to Portland as one of your regionals, right? So I think there is a chance that it like rivals and maybe goes past. I know that the Pacific Northwest is also just a place where they play a decent amount of expanded for their local events. Like it's half their events, where
Crazy.
we don't really do that pretty much anywhere else in the country, at least that I know of. So I would, I think it would rival it in terms of if numbers, maybe even go past it. But
that's crazy because I paid less than $200 to fly to Nashville Worlds 2 years ago. But I don't know.
That's crazy. Because I think my flight was around the Nashville. I think was like 500 to 600 at least.
I just realized
How
something.
I paid
Flights to
$150.
London are like
I don't remember what
400 and something, and that's how much a flight to Portland is. So
What?
like,
Is that
Yeah.
total or just each way?
400 total.
total, yeah, round trip.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to hook up
Yeah,
with
like
your
my
flight
flights.
dealer. Jeez.
for real, bro.
I don't know. But yeah. Expanded's always the format where it's like, oh, I want to try, but then it's like people have it like so like not I wouldn't say figured out, but they've had it narrowed down to like these amount of decks, and I'm like, I'm not. I just would end up net decking some deck and failing with it.
So
Yeah.
At our locals, I mean, no one. There is some people who were on aggro before in our area because there's just a group in our area who's really into grass and they've been on it before.
Aggro.
And for clarification, you're in what particular area?
We're in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. So we were in the Berkeley Cup today, and there was like a handful of players who were on aggro for a while, like before Richmond. So I think they're still on it from what they're saying. But a lot of other people, like pretty much everyone else, was like, "Oh, I don't know what to play," and they were kind of, like these results kind of threw them for a loop, and now everyone's kind of scrambling to get together now again, right?
They're like, yeah, we were right.
now, are there any decks that didn't really see play at Richmond that you think could make a splash at Portland?
Maybe. I don't
Basically,
know.
what's the aggro
Maybe
deck of,
Night March we'll see a little bit more. Since
I mean-
after Richmond, it fell off people's radars. Seeing like,
Nightmare saw a splash though. I think we're talking about like decks that like
Like, what's the
expecting them
aggro
to
of
show.
Portland? Like, do you have one?
the aggro of Portland is gonna be aggro.
I think
I think Peak Rom's pretty well placed, and I just like Peak Rom as a deck. It's fast.
Consistent.
You have it's consistent. You have a solid amount of techs that like different attackers, kind of like Dark Box.
Well,
where
there
you
was one. I didn't even see that.
there's
Yeah,
like
there was
one or
one, but I
two.
think that-
So, like I don't think it's hugely like there's not a big target on it. I think Zoro Garb there was only one, so it's another deck that I think if you tech your decks right, like they have the ability to add text to them.
Yeah.
Because I heard more about the Snorlax deck than I heard about the Rowlet deck.
Yeah, that deck kind of died.
It got
Yeah.
19th. That's not horrible.
Oh yeah, but the issue with Snorlax is that Snorlax, and even like one of the main creators, Joel Struve, who lives in the Bay Area, he even said that Snorlax was only good for a meta where it wasn't prepared for. Now that the deck is prepared for, and like some people are like, oh, like this is an actual deck, like we have to, like take that into consideration. The deck I don't think is as strong as it was for Rich.
So let's reverse it. We pretty much have said we expect Rowlet. It sounds like from what you guys are talking, you expect an Uprise and some type of Turbo Dark. Unless you're just optimistic. Because you both sound like you're kind of optimistic, but it would depend on testing.
Yeah, and we don't have a lot of time, right? Like it's a week,
Yeah.
and I don't know how many people actually have time to change it up in a week's time to like figure out. That's the thing. Like the things that beat, there's not many things that beat Rowlet and beat Zoroark Control, right? Like they're two. It takes kind of different things to beat them, and then also on top of that, you throw in Turbo Dark, and those three decks are just like a very interesting three decks to try to beat. So there might be change, but I think they'll just be like the good decks, the ones that are best. And Zoroark is always a deck that can adapt. That's always been like the
So
biggest strength of it, right?
What do you guys expect to have a fall off, if anything?
Aggro, 100%. I don't think there'll be as many in day 2. I don't think 3 of the 8 that make day 2 were top 8. I think Zoro.
I think Zoro Control might fall.
Yeah. Zoro Control as well, just because people are teched for it. I think that Zoro Garb will rise because, for instance, Katron's list played Instructor Renguru and Reset Whole Marshadow to basically make the Zoro Control matchup heavily favored for Zoro Garb. I think that Zoro Garb is really well positioned because I think it has a decent aggro matchup, and if you tech those cards to beat Zoro Control, I see no reason why that deck couldn't have an uprise compared to not doing very well.
Okay. That's pretty... Yeah, honestly, I can't see anything besides... I think because that testing group with like the DDG and friends, they don't usually play the same deck back to back, right?
They did for Zorotoad. I think they did for like 3 or 4 straight regionals they played.
So they may
think that's
play
different.
Control again.
They might.
Probably.
Yeah,
in a
but
week, they probably won't change.
I think that they know though that there's issues with the deck. Like I think they know, like since it didn't win this event, they know that people were already teching for Zoro Control. For instance, on the Zoro Dark, teched like 3 cards specifically for Zoro Control. Like I think they like already know like the deck is on people's radars. It's now on everyone's radar, and that the deck was already teched for at this event. So I think that might make them a little concerned to play. I'm not entirely sure though.
So they may potentially change, in your opinion.
Yeah,
It depends.
and there's odds. Yeah, I'm not really sure if there's too many other decks. Like Archie's is kind of trash. I mean, it could make a comeback. I don't know. Expanded's the
Wasn't
weird.
one Archie's, right, in day 2? I think
There was
Yeah, like
0
it's just a
Archie's.
bad like it's pretty bad. Vespi Queen and Flareon and Night March, I don't think you see those decks as much. Like I just think those decks fall off with just the scare of
Do any
aggro.
these just disappear off the face of the earth? Or, like, from what we've seen in day 2, do you think you'll see a 0?
I think 0 Vespa and maybe at maximum 1 Night March will make day 2 because Aggro, they just go Karen and the Plume Lock's already in and they just can't win.
Jeez.
Like, and like, just the fact that like, yeah. I don't know though.
Yeah, it's Expanded's a weird place. I think Expanded's also something where people have pet decks. Like they just like I'm gonna play Night March or whatever deck because I really like that deck. So I don't I think it's hard to say that a deck will completely vanish, but it'll just be. It won't be like a deck that a lot of people consider,
Yeah.
especially with these one prize decks. They just get absolutely trashed by item lock most of the time. So
I think unless you guys have pretty much anything else to add, I think we've pretty much said all we probably could. Unless you guys have something else you want to add.
no, that's pretty much it.
I've asked
Me.
pretty much everybody, so if you don't mind, I'll ask you guys. I'm a huge fan of, if not rotating expanded, doing like quicker bans or something like that. What would your guys' take be on that? Because I hate expanded because it leaves too many options, and then they don't. If they did enough R&D, maybe I'd like it, but it doesn't seem like they'll ever do that. So, what do you guys think?
I think the bans that are coming out actually make expanded a little more manageable because Zoro Control just dies, and any of like the new, like a potential infinite loop decks just kind of aren't really that good anymore. But I do think that, hey, if Pokemon is quick to ban cards, like for instance, Pokemon was already banning Reset Stamp before it, like, it was immediately banned once expanded regional started coming out. I mean, I know that like it isn't banned until I believe November 15th, but the fact they were quick to say like, you know, like Reset Stamp or Surge, like these type of cards, they should not be in expanded.
Yeah, they
I
banned
think
the
that's
Amulet with the quickness.
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing that Pokemon does. I don't know how if it would make expanded better to cut like 10 sets out. I mean, I don't know. We would just have to wait and see, honestly.
Yeah, for example, I was saying basically get rid of Black and White.
Sure.
Mhm.
I don't know how that would affect it because so many of the like control and so many unhealthy cards are like in the X, Y, and Sun and Moon sets. So I wonder if that would even make that major of a difference. I think it would definitely change it.
I think that's the first time I've heard that take, or even if they do, like, go what it would be X, Y on, I guess, and that it wouldn't
Yeah, I
change
mean-
much.
I think it
What
would
is-
change, but it
What is the eggs from? What set is eggs from?
Plasma Freeze.
Plasma something.
Plasma.
The execute. Sorry.
Oh, the executes from Plasma Freeze, I believe.
Yeah, it's one. It's either Blast or Freeze. It's one of those. But you would lose Sableye. What would you? You would use all the weird Trubbishes.
Lose
Lose
the
Archie's.
all the A specs.
Ooh,
Yeah, that'd be big.
that'd be huge. So what about you,
Yeah.
Cam? Are you a fan of the rotate or just quicker bans or what?
I just don't like expanded as a format. I think James Arnold was the one that said it. Like, I just don't see the point. I think expanded does benefit the player who does put more time in. Like if you put in the time in, you can kind of break the meta for that event. The thing is, it's not like the events. The events are by far much lower than standard, even though standard has its problems now. None of the major like I season higher are never expanded. The cards are so hard to get in, and like the game is shifting in player base. Like there's a lot of new players coming in
Yeah.
that don't have the cards, do not want to spend a lot of money on buttons because all these cards are expensive, right? I mean, there was a time when the Paralyzing Gaze Zorua was like almost $20. I mean, whatever it is, like these cards are so hard to get, and they're gonna only be harder to get as time goes on. I get the reason for having the format. There are people who love the format. I just don't. I mean, that's why I'm not going to Portland. I just don't really want to spend so much money on keeping up to two different like sets of cards that aren't usable in standard. Like we already have new sets coming out all the time in standard, which is already enough money for me.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I'm just kind of over expanded. If it went and died in the corner quietly, like I'm happy with that.
That's what I kind of. I see. I kind of like expanded. Like you said, it does benefit from the testing, which I'm okay with. Like, I want the tryhards, for lack of a better word, to be able to have their
Try hard. Yeah.
their reign to shine. You know, like if they want to put in 100 hours a week or whatever, you know what, you deserve to win. But at the same time, like you said, ever since we added like money as an actual like what we get for winning. We've been increasing numbers and numbers, and no one's. We need better ease of access for these older cards if they want us to like actually care. Because I'm gonna be honest with you right now, I have almost every expanded card, and I still don't care. But if I had to go pick up all this stuff, like let's say I just started like with Sun and Moon, and I had to go like get all these versus seekers and stuff like that, that would start to add up.
Very intimidating. Yeah.
Mm.
Whereas in standard, I can just go. I think the most intimidating card to get would probably be the Dene, and you could play decks that don't have that in it, and probably
Play
maybe
green
not
decks.
win, but you'd compete at least.
Greens decks are solid
Yeah,
decks,
but
and they don't play the
Yeah.
Dene.
And greens are cheap.
I just think it's
And I
like.
think another.
Sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead.
I think a big thing is that like expanded meta changes so much. So that means for like a newer player who like finally bought some expanded cards, like instantly, like once some type of like expanded regionals over, the meta can completely change, and there are a bunch of new cards that player has to buy, and that's very intimidating for some
You
players.
also
'cause
lose
the
your
meta just
investment too.
yeah.
Like if you bought Night March cards, let's say you bought
Yep.
Night March cards before this event. I don't know how much they are right now, and then you have to go back, and you're like, okay, now Night March is nothing, or whatever deck is like, now it's countered out of the meta because of aggro or Zora control, and I have to go buy new cards now. So it's just I just don't like the.
Like
It's
for
just so much
example,
money.
you said the Zora paralyzing gaze was $20 at one point. Let's say you sucked it up and bought it. Right now in TCG, they're like $5.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very hard to make your money back in expanded because cards fluctuate so much.
I think they would have to re-release some of the older cards, but then they don't want to do that because every collector would be pissed, and then I don't know.
It would destroy a market of expanded.
Dowsing
sellers,
was like
for sure.
100, close to 100 at one point, and it dropped down, but like
Yeah, computer
that's
search
so
goes up
much.
to like 60 to 80 right before every regional, and then it drops down to like 15 to 20 when it's not happening. I don't know. I have a little faith for it because, like I said, I like when you get benefits from putting in the work, but at the same time, it's like you gotta go where the money is, and standard is where the money's at right now. Well, we're having what 1,000+ standard regionals almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, Collinsville last season broke 1,000. I think Dallas broke.
And I think on average
Wow.
we were getting what, even in Cali we were getting like 500. So if that
It was like 600, yeah, it was like
let's say
500,
5
600.
to 600 is the average, and you guys said what this one just had 400.
On the East
About
Coast too,
420,
it's like where the big ones happen, right?
So
Yeah.
400 at let's say what are regionals? Are they 50 yet, or are they still 40?
40 for what registration?
Yeah.
Like 50 now. Pretty across the board.
You can actually get up to around 60 as well.
Let's say 50 for quick math. So that's
Sure.
what.
Yeah.
What is that?
Just
2,000? Am I stupid? I think I'm stupid.
No, it's 2,000. It's 2,000 in Reg if you do 50 at 400 people roughly. I mean, you have to take into seniors and juniors, but
Yeah,
even
so
then,
comparative to 600 at 50. That's not
even like I think of the kids especially too, because a lot of the kids now, like a lot of the good top players have aged up. As if you just look at the results, there's like a lot of young players who are doing really well in Masters this year, and all these young kids don't exactly have, and their parents aren't itching to buy like all these expanded cards, and I think that translates. And you've seen like the junior and senior numbers are really low for
Yeah, it was like
expanded.
58.
Okay, I
think
need to run a
seniors.
regional because I've done this math 10 times and I can't believe this is how much they get for registration. So at 400, at $50, they'd get around 20,000. Obviously, that's not counting cost, revenue, like venue and all that stuff. But in comparison, if the 600 at $50, they get 30,000. That's a big number. So
I don't even know if they're still making money though. Are they even?
yeah, I mean, I'm
profited
just saying
from
they
regional?
probably don't make much. But I'm saying, let's say if we look at just from the broad spectrum, you know, like outside looking in.
Yeah.
If you're let's say I'm running a regional, I'm not gonna want to be that guy that has to run the expanded regional.
Definitely not. I mean, look at Knoxville, 778. I mean, the regional in Europe, 726, 762 for Atlantic City. Like they're all, steady around 700. I mean, even in Europe.
And if I'm
There's
not
700.
That's a
mistaken,
ton for Europe.
I think they let the.
I mean, it's also because the world is there, but
they let
you
the
know,
organizers
Yeah.
pick, but I'm sure they make some of them like, hey, we already have 12 standards. We need a few of you to be expanded.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, for some reason, I feel like the majority of expanded events are more West Coast, like West to Central. I don't know why they do that, but
It used to
That's
be
something
a
that
lot
I've
of
seen.
East Coast, but yeah, it definitely has a
Yeah.
fight.
yeah, it's definitely been more West Coast.
But
I don't
both
know
of
why
our
they-
Cali regionals are standard, so I'm happy.
Yeah,
For the first
They-
time in a long time. Too bad I basically have to go to Mexico for one of them, but whatever. But yeah, I think that's about it. Do you guys have any?
Flights are cheap though to San Diego.
yeah.
Wait, I have a quick.
the man that doesn't gotta pay for his flight stuff.
Mr.
They are cheap though.
I'm not listening to Mr. Uncrustables, okay? I'm not. Well, go ahead,
You're
T.
just
What'd you
mad
want to
because you don't have. an
Yeah, what were you gonna say,
Uncrustable.
T?
Okay, so I do have a quick question, just for the quick standard topic. What are you guys looking forward to with the Cosmic Eclipse dropping?
Dark Box, I think, is good. I think Reshi Greens, the new Charizard of Braixen, is very strong. I think that deck's gonna do very well. I think Pika keeps its place. I think Malamar dies. It just doesn't have enough. Like you
Get up and
You-
go.
you gain some cards, but just like you just gain some bad matchups. Like Reshi Greens gets a huge buff. That's not a good matchup. Like the Mimikyu helps the Mewtwo matchup, but like they can just play like Champions Festival, and like I just don't know if
Or
Malamar's
Stealthy
strong
Hood.
enough anymore.
I
Yeah,
forgot Champions
Yeah, I
Festival is
don't-
technically standard.
I've been testing it. I think Green's decks are good if you don't. I mean, they lose to Birds though, and Birds
Yeah,
is
Birds is way
really
better.
strong. So more control in this format. I've been testing it a bit. I really like Braxton.
Is
It's so
Birds just
strong.
a control? Is that what Birds is?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they only grew
exactly.
Pidgeotto, and now they can play in 30 minutes because of Bryson Man. Which
that's
Mills-
what it is, yeah.
What does Bryson Man do again?
Mills
Just
three-
Mills
Top
you
defense
top
for both
three.
decks.
It mill threes,
Uh.
and if you did, was it discard 2 from your hand or something?
No, you
So you mill 3 of top of both players' decks, and if you discard 2, it's like a single-use parallel city where they have to go down to 3 cards on bench.
Yeah.
And it's for both players.
Yeah. Milling actually helps the Pidgeotto deck because Pidgeotto wants to thin down their deck to where like they can consistently get that lock. So like that card, even though like you're milling yourself, is actually helping right
Yeah, and then you can just bring
some
it all
way.
back anyway.
only
They
the
got
cards
the-
you want.
And then they got the Gross Magneton, the new Magneton that's coming out, which seems really good, especially for Mirror, is where you pop it and it like blows itself up. You grab 3 supporters to hand. So in the Mirror, you make them go up in prizes, and now you can surge Bryson Man.
That's
Yeah.
Do you
It'll
have
be
a,
fun.
Do you have a pick, Dom? Since they, or did you do yours, Gabe, or was that just Cameron?
I already said mine.
Did you say?
I like
Box.
Reshiram because that's like a whole new archetype, and, like a whole new deck that I think will be good. And like Gabe said, I think Dark Box is gonna also be good.
I think everyone's trying to make Reshi Rom do good, but it's like I've
I
seen
don't know
so
how
many
good the deck
bad
is.
lists, and none of them seem to
Yeah.
work so far that I've seen.
It's extremely linear, and there are just decks that are just have more options. Like Dark Box has more options, and I don't know how good a deck is that just says I'm gonna use only one single attacker, and I'm gonna try to win the game.
To me, I said it to one of my locals. It feels like your Blacephalon and Pikarom put together, and it doesn't do like a good mesh. Like they don't mesh well.
It's just extremely linear.
with
Yeah.
different energy just typically don't do great. I mean, obviously Mewbox is one of the exceptions, and I think that's because of Welder. So maybe Welder can kind of supplement that because of the energy acceleration. But I don't know. We'll see.
So,
We'll see.
quick question for Gabe. Since you mentioned Green's decks, getting more tools. Aside from Brixton, what else do they get?
They get Brixton.
Rosa.
I would have. Yeah. Rosa could be decent with because you can like surge greens and like Rosa or something like that. But I would have to look into all the supporters and all like the new cards.
Personally,
I
I
do think they get is tag call.
Go
It's a
ahead.
big one. Like, yeah, tag call just basically gives you Mareshi green or a Reshi, and it gives you one like Charizard breaks. It's like, or
Yeah.
like it just gives you
Oh.
some of those tag team support.
So it gives you basically tag call gives you 2 tag team
Yeah.
cards, and that doesn't specify Pokemon, so you can get the new tag team supporters. And so I think Green's decks, the big question for them has always been, are they consistent enough? And now you can grab a tag team Pokemon, and a tag team supporter. There's Cynthia and Caitlyn, which is like kind of a consistency supporter, and then there's and then Mallow and Lana, which is I think just shuts out Malamar from the format, which is like it switches out
Kirby?
you switch out your active, and then you heal 120 from it. And so Giratina is kind of like the main thing that they use, 130, 130, and you're just like Mallow and Lana, I can easily access it off of a tag call. Guardian and Zard just easily beat it. They
I
have
love
so
the
many more
tag
supporters.
call because
Greens also get Mega Lopunny and
Yeah, that's true.
deck
That's big.
the other Pokemon in
That
there.
actually I think makes Pikarom maybe favorable for the deck.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah. What were you gonna say though?
Yeah, I love tag call because I'll be honest, I haven't played a lot of greens, but I was someone who would always say I hate greens because it always feels like at least early, depending on your hand, obviously, you're always greening for at least one green, right? And now with tag
sometimes
call, now with
depends
tag
on your
call, you don't have to most of the time because you're still getting this, that, or the other. So like I said, I'm not an experienced green player, so it just from the few games I've played, it always felt like I have to keep this green chain going on, till I'm set up. And now with tag call, that leaves more room for where I don't have to do that because I can get this card, that card. It's basically a Cherish Ball or a Skylight. It could pretty much be anything.
The only time you need a green chain is when your hand isn't very good.
And Caitlyn and Cynthia, what it does is you discard a card, draw 3, and put a supporter back to hand. So you could do that, grab your greens back. For Green Zard, you can grab your welders back. You don't have to exactly search for it. So it's pretty cool.
That's dope.
I think the greens is one of the best decks in the format because tag call makes it, I think, a top 3 deck in the format. Like tag call in the deck just adds so much consistency and just the ability to respond to your opponent. It's just incredible for greens. Like it is by far the biggest addition I think in the deck.
Doesn't Pikarom just get that
Besides
much
when
better
Charizard
now,
breaks it.
though? On paper, at least? Doesn't Pikarom...
I think it gets bodied by Megalopuff.
Yeah.
So it's a new card that it's a colorless, it only takes 3 energy, and it does 60 plus 60 more for every GX. So a lot of cards can splash it in, like Green's decks, like Zard decks, Mewtwo, Guardian, like all these decks. And then Pikarom, like everything they play is a GX. So you can one-shot so easily.
And they have Jirachi's, Tapu Koko, Prism, and maybe Zapdos.
Yeah,
but those aren't really
all they
on the
need is
board,
3
like,
GXs on the bench.
Yeah.
And they
you only
to
need
bench the
3.
Yeah, they have to bench 3 or their deck really isn't gonna function properly, to be honest.
Alright, I think we're about wrapping up. Let's just go down the line. Why don't we start with you, Gabe? Do you have any shout-outs or anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, shout out to Silph Company and all my teammates. Shout out to Rowan, who made top 8, the list we worked on. And yeah, that's about it.
What about you, Cameron? You got anything to add?
Shout out to the Silph Company. As always, shout out to Isaiah Williams. I'm happy he's back in the Bay Area. He's been gone for a year. And shout out to the Hyatts.
Oh, I didn't even know he moved.
Really?
Well, I thought he. Yeah, long story.
He's back for school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He took a Pokemon sabbatical. Nice.
Yes.
Oh no.
Mhm.
He took a
a year
California sabbatical.
All right. Do you got anything to say, T or Dom?
Shout out to my mom and dad. Shout out to Josh, who's going to be working hard editing this and the stream. And shout out to Dom's mom because I love Angela.
Wow. Don't
Shout out to you guys for having us, man.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for coming. You're more than
Yeah,
welcome
that was
to come
fun.
back.
Shout out to
Next time.
Brian for telling my mom that there was a flights for cheap, so now I don't have to drive. So now I don't have to sit in a car for 10
Oh
hours.
yeah, is that thing official yet?
No.
You're killing me.
Leaks. But
No
yeah,
leaks.
you guys are more than
Okay.
welcome to come anytime. Just hit us up. Sorry we had to delay it by like 3 days, but you know.
No, yeah, you're good, man.
All
Stuff
right.
happens.
I think that's
Yeah,
all
thank
we
you.
got. Thank you guys for coming. As like I
Yeah.
said, come check us next time. All the links and stuff that they just shout out, we'll link them down below. Does Silph Co have like a Twitter or something?
They do.
Do you wanna? Is it just Silph Co?
It's just the Silph Company. We just started it recently. There's not many posts, but we're gonna get on it with lists and stuff.
All right.
So check us out.
We'll make sure we link all that stuff down there.
Okay.
Once again, thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Yes.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. Remember to like the video, leave a comment of what you want to see next, and subscribe. T here from the Break Even TCG channel, signing out.